As I mentioned before on this channel, I'm a pretty big fan of The Flash. I was also a fan of Arrow seasons 1, 2, and 5, so needless to say, I have watched every episode of The Flash since the day it aired. After having seen 2 solid seasons of Arrow, I thought The Flash was going to blow me away. I knew the visual effects may not be that great because of the network, but at least we were finally getting to see a live-action version of The Flash. The hype was real. Everyone on the internet was relatively excited about this show at the time. Now, after rewatching seasons 1 through 7 of The Flash, I thought now would be a good time for us to open a discussion about the origins of the Arrowverse. Why was it so good and groundbreaking at first, to now having become a parody of itself? And will Superman and Lois save it? Stick around to the end if you want to hear my thoughts on that. Part 1. Arrow. So, when Arrow first aired on October 10th, 2012, audiences were a bit hesitant. We had just finished watching the Arrow character in Smallville, and now we were supposed to accept this other guy? But Arrow was actually a good show. See, between the time Smallville ended 2 years before that, superhero media had evolved a lot. Smallville told a small story about a man who struggles with his superhero identity, until eventually growing to that final moment of Clark Kent becoming Superman. Arrow told a story about a superhero struggling with his identity as a man. Next level storytelling is the brilliance of starting the first episode with Oliver already donning the hood, then telling the island story through flashbacks. The way this show set up its season 2 villain halfway through the first season, letting us as an audience sit and wait for Wade Wilson's eventual turn against Oliver, is supremely handled. Then in season 2, we get to meet Barry Allen, planting the seed that this may be an expanding universe. My point is, by the time this show had released, superhero media was all the craze at the time. The Marvel Cinematic Universe was in full effect, and the general audience was shifting away from the standard solo superhero stories. We now wanted bigger stuff, with more of the characters we love, hanging out and bumping into each other like they do in the comics. Greg Berlanti and Mark Guggenheim knew this, so they slowly built a universe, much like the MCU did in their first few phases. Watching Alan get introduced, I was ecstatic, and the first 2 seasons of his show were solid. Season 3 had some decent elements, but it's been on a steep decline in quality for a few years now. This brings me to Part 2, The Flash. This show, much like Arrow, started with the superhero already being a hero from episode 1. None of this slow build stuff. We see super speed right away. But while Arrow was dark and gritty, The Flash was fun and optimistic, which is part of why I think it was so successful at the start. Again, another reason the first 2 seasons are so good, in my opinion, has a lot to do with the villains. Season 1, tying back to his origins, was near flawless and had many excellent moments. The thing that separated The Flash from Arrow was that The Flash had no problem with diving into the weirder part of comic book stories. He even time traveled in episode 15. This show was wild, and we can tell that these first 2 seasons there was a lot of care that went into making this show. Then that cliffhanger at the end of season 2. We were going to get Flashpoint, right? When this season started, I kind of understood why the writers chose to do only 1 episode of it. Writing time travel is hard, and before writing themselves into a corner, they decided to get back to a sense of relatively normal. But in my opinion, this is where things went downhill. Sure, seasons 1 and 2 had some plot holes and leaps in logic, but they had a gripping story and for the most part were well made. Season 3 is where the cracks start to show, and it's only gotten worse since then. As I said, a significant factor for me as to what makes a show suitable is the villain. If your villain is downright scary,
the days of the Flash protecting this city are over. Hold your fire! Now, what will you do without your precious hero? Nice try.
Or clever, or maybe has a close connection to the hero, there usually will be more depth in their character. And well, Reverse Flash was very well utilized in Season 1, and Zoom was downright terrifying in Season 2. The convoluted mess that was Savitar is not only confusing, but overall highly underwhelming. Yes, Zoom should have been Barry from Earth 2, but they missed that opportunity, so we got this hacked together story that even the writers can't make sense of. I mean, seriously, what is this?
I know what you are. You're a time remnant, a temporal duplicate. You brought a remnant to life last year to defeat Zoom. Then you decided to play God. You created Flashpoint. My future self told me that he created time remnants to stop you. That you slaughtered them all but one. Me. What happens if I kill myself? If I die, then you'll never be created. See, that's the thing about time travel, Barry. The more you do it, the less the rules apply to you.
You serious?
Part 3. The crossovers. One of the benefits of having many superhero shows all on one network is that they all tend to film in the exact same location. This makes crossovers much more doable. So, seeing the success that Marvel was having with their Avengers movies, Warner Brothers wanted to get in on that action. Only they couldn't seem to get it right on the big screen. So they slimmed things down and started looking at the small screen.
Nanites, courtesy of Ray Palmer.
This brings us to Flash vs. Arrow. At that time, this was relatively ambitious. We were getting not one, but 2 nights of our favorite superheroes popping up on each other's shows. Somehow, a regular dude with an arrow beat up a guy with super speed, but who cares? It was awesome, and I was on board. Then, the following year, we get what was advertised as a 4-night crossover, but was really only a 3-night crossover, and to be honest, was quite a letdown. It's called Invasion. Fast forward another year into the middle of the worst season of Arrow and the downfall season of The Flash, and we get an ambitious crossover called Crisis on Earth X. In my opinion, this was the peak of the Arrowverse. They have yet to top this crossover. Part 4. The Downfall. I haven't mentioned Legends of Tomorrow much in this video because I've given up on that show. Like Arrow, The Flash, even Supergirl, I watched that show on opening night, and I continued to watch it week to week. And just like those shows before it, the first 2 seasons were solid. The second season is actually one of my favorite seasons of the Arrowverse. But then, in season 3, it fell off just like the others. I'm beginning to see a trend here. I feel like CW shows have a solid track record of starting good, but after a while, it feels like they start repeating the same tropes over and over again. I know it's hard to judge Smallville because of the nostalgia we all feel for it, but even that show is reported to be much weaker in the later seasons than the first few. The CW is a network that likes to run its properties dry. Look at how many seasons there are of Supernatural and tell me I'm wrong. Arrow should have ended after season 5. It would have been a great bookend, but it didn't. Instead, it went for 3 more bad seasons. Now The Flash has the same problem. It's like they've run out of good stories, so we just keep getting a rehash of the old stuff. Oh, Barry has another problem he can't solve? That's alright, he'll just consult with one of the many supporting cast members we have. The Arrowverse doesn't have any direction anymore, and I fear it will lose its relevance. Part 5. Will Superman and Lois save it? If you have never seen a video on this channel before, just know I liked season 1 of Superman and Lois quite a bit. There are actually 2 videos available on this channel about how great that show is. But the big question is it good enough to make people care about the Arrowverse again? Honestly, I don't think so. While it's an excellent show, if the last shows are any indication as to what to expect, season 2 will likely be outstanding. But it will slowly decrease in quality from there. Will I watch it? Probably. I've spent a lot of time with these characters. I'm still invested in their stories, regardless if I'm routinely disappointed. I don't want to be a negative YouTube channel. I'm not making this to tear down the CW. It may not always knock it out of the park, but it has always made some great superhero shows, even before superhero shows were as popular as they are today. So I am thankful for this network, because whether you want to believe it or not, the Arrowverse made some ambitious moves, and I still hope that I'm wrong. Thank you for watching this entire video. If you could leave a like, subscribe, and tell everyone about it, I'd appreciate it. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I'm out of here. Peace!